You're listening to This is Yoga Therapy. I'm your host, Michelle Lawrence, and I've had the opportunity to interview many of those who are making a difference at the intersections of yoga and health. And I'm here to share with you their stories and conversations. Thanks for listening. So welcome and thanks for joining this student and alumni panel with Inner Peace Yoga Therapy. And I'm Michelle Lawrence. I'm the founder and director of Inner Peace Yoga Therapy. And we do these panels from time to time so that you all have an opportunity to hear from some of our graduates as well as current students who are either completing their training or already working out there in the field as yoga therapists, or maybe a little bit of both. I think it's really helpful, particularly in an emerging profession like yoga therapy, to hear from people who are actually doing it in case you might be interested in pursuing a training like this yourself, or maybe you have pursued a training like this yourself and are always looking for ideas and inspiration and ways to connect with other people who are also doing the work. So tonight, we're going to hear from three of our panelists. We've got Whitney Pasch here. Whitney lives in Chicago, and she's a professional yoga therapist. We've got Jordan Smith here as well. Jordan lives in Ontario area in Canada, and she's currently in our program, but also working as a yoga therapist. And we have Lisa Haake here, a recent graduate. She lives in Urbana, Illinois, working as a mental health professional and yoga therapist. So we'll hear from each of them. Then we'll also invite you to ask questions of them or of me if there's anything here that piques your interest. So we're going to begin by having Whitney share. And when Whitney's turn comes up here, I'd love her to share a little bit about what she's doing now that she's completed her yoga therapist certification, and also to share a bit about how her training through Inner Peace helped her prepare for the work that she does today. Thanks, Whitney.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. So I've been practicing yoga therapy for, let me do the math here, about 6 years now. And it's changed. It's ebbed and flowed since I graduated and got my certification. But where I'm at right now, my workload is kind of split into three prongs or like categories. So one of those is working at a rehab or a recovery center, however you want to call that. And it's called SunCloud Health. They have a few locations in the Chicagoland area. And I work there in yoga therapy groups. So I'm with adults and adolescents separately that are in recovery for various things. Many of them have a trauma history, strong trauma exposure, substance use disorder, eating disorders, and sometimes there are like other mental illnesses that folks are dealing with. And so they're in residential facilities, and I see them in outpatient groups as well. I do about 5 therapy groups with them weekly. So that's like one chunk of what I do, of my brain power. And then another section is working with private clients. That has ebbed and flowed over the years as well. Right now, I have a handful of private clients that I see online. And the way that I kind of run my own business with the clients is to keep my schedule open for it so that there's a little bit of wiggle room, there's a little bit of leeway, and know that there are going to be clients that want like just maybe a handful of sessions. I got an inquiry recently about like a parent-child duo, and their son needed some help with breathing practices. And they're like, can we book 3 sessions? So I try to leave room in my schedule for that. And then I do have a few clients that I've been seeing for a very, very long time, and they want to see me weekly. And so it's interesting because with yoga therapy, with the training and how it kind of changed my lens of teaching and changed my approach, all of the clients are going to receive yoga therapy, regardless of whether they come to me for yoga instruction. I guess that's it. Yeah, for yoga instruction, it's going to be yoga therapy. So that has changed over the years with these clients. So that's another, again, like section of what I do. And then the third piece is teacher training. So many of you are aware that I support the Inner Peace trainings. I also co lead a local teacher training in Chicago that's owned by a psychotherapy practice. And they brand the training as psychologically sensitive. I would love to get them to be a member school with IAYT. Michelle, that's a discussion for us later. I want to like funnel them into the yoga therapy program, but I do that as well. I am kind of pulled in a few different directions, but I've tried to narrow it down so that I don't feel too scattered, because that's something that has definitely come up for me in the past over the years, just feeling like I'm being pulled in too many directions, feeling like I had to say yes to every opportunity that is presented to me. And as a result, challenges of just like getting around the city, feeling like overwhelmed, forgetting to do stuff, that kind of thing. It really disrupts Vata. So I've been over the past couple years trying to find a niche. And so I do recommend doing that for those of you that are in training or that are watching this recording, to consider over the long term what your focus is going to be. I think it will make life easier. I don't know if that's true, but that's my opinion. That's what I do for work. And Inner Peace has prepared me in a lot of different ways. I would say two of the main ways that the training has prepared me is with my relationship to myself. So, like the self healing aspect and learning and applying the things that I learned in train, or learning and applying what was covered in training, and taking care of myself so that I actually have the capacity to hold space for other people authentically. That continues to be a work in progress. I believe that's a lifetime of work in progress. And the other major way is that yoga, or Inner Peace Yoga Therapy, has a very comprehensive program. So I was able to learn from a lot of different teachers, different backgrounds, different focuses, and pull from the modalities that resonated with me. And I find that that has also ebbed and flowed. But for where I'm at right now, the work I'm doing right now, I frequently refer to the yoga of recovery work from Durga, and also to pain care yoga from Neil and Lisa. And I apply those concepts and those principles every time I'm with the yoga therapy groups. So, yeah, I would say those are the main ways that the training has prepared me for this work.
Thank you, Whitney. I really appreciate you sharing. And I think it's helpful to know that as a yoga therapist, you may eventually work for someone else or work for yourself, or in your case, maybe a little bit of both, right? I think a lot of our graduates do go into private practice, but that doesn't mean you cannot also work in a healthcare facility and either teach groups or do some contract based work there as well. So I think it's helpful to kind of see the picture of that, because I think that's often the case. And I'm curious if anybody has any questions for Whitney right now before we move to Jordan. And we can also circle back at the end if not.
And Michelle, I should clarify, I know you know this, but to everyone, that the work at the rehab is contracted work. So
Mhm.
I'm not an employee with them, but they hired me in a way, an annual contract with them.
Yes, that's right. I did know that. And thank you for clarifying. And it's probably helpful for folks to know that too. If you do go to work for someone else as a yoga therapist, that could be as an employee of the organization or contract-based work, because we see both of those things happening out there in the world. So we'll circle back and see if there's any questions, because I'm not noticing any hands up just yet. And we're going to move on to Jordan here next. So, hi, Jordan.
Hi,
Thank
Michelle.
you for being here. And as you share with those who are here tonight, Jordan, I'd love for you to just speak about why you chose Inner Peace Yoga Therapy for your training. There's about 100 accredited yoga therapy programs worldwide today, maybe a little bit less than that, actually. So, what was it that drew you to our program? And also, let's hear how you're bringing your yoga therapy into the work that you're currently doing. You're a studio owner, you're also a yoga teacher, which yoga therapists are. Hear about it from that perspective as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Michelle. Yeah, like you said, there are a lot of different programs to choose from. And as yoga teachers, we also know there's so many. And then with yoga therapy, it's smaller, but there's still so many trainings to choose from. And the reason I got into this kind of became a kind of a nugget of an idea in my brain is because my first teaching job since COVID in 2021, I completely started teaching a very different population of people at the studio I was teaching at. So people with certain mobility concerns and people with certain health concerns and people really of all ages. And it really opened and broadened my power vinyasa kind of viewpoint of yoga. And I thought there has to be a therapeutic style of yoga. And so it just popped in my head to Google therapeutic yoga. And there were a lot of different trainings to look at, but the big thing that stuck out to me about inner peace and about the language, of course, on the site, and then speaking with you, was that it was first very, very clear as to what yoga therapy is. Because I think a lot of times, sometimes that can get, this is kind of how you said in the beginning, it's an emerging field. This has been around for so long, but maybe not with these exact words that we put to it now. But with an emerging field, it can be very hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. And I felt very confident about, oh, so this is what yoga therapy is. This is what I will be getting into. This is what the courses are. And this is the outlook of my career and how I can add it to my life as a teacher. And that was very reassuring because when you're investing in yourself and investing in your career and your education, you want to know that there's a very clear path to this is going to help me with something. And so having that just kind of clarity was very, very important. And there is a lovely thing about having the syllabus and all of the mentorships and all of the topics just right in front of me to see, oh, this is what I'm going to learn. And kind of how Whitney said, we learned from especially in level one, we learned from so many different teachers and so many different professionals with so many different styles. And it was very, very holistic to where I felt like, oh, I'm going to learn a little bit from this person, a little bit from this person. And there are these names I've known for years, and then you see them on the syllabus, and it made me very excited. I think especially Joseph LePage and then Lisa and Neil Pearson, it's just amazing to learn from them. That was really incredible. And so, yeah, there was that clarity. There was a decisive nature of what yoga therapy was and is. And it gave me the confidence to be able to know, okay, I can make this a solid, steady career and add this, into my current career, which was as a yoga teacher, which I guess kind of goes into how I bring it into the work that I currently do. As you mentioned, I am a yoga studio owner. And so while I was going through the training, I was teaching in another area. I used to live in the US, and I was just teaching and I was bringing subtly those little nuggets that I was learning from level one into my teaching. And then I moved, and a year and a half ago, I opened up a yoga studio. And of course, it's been nice because I can continue to bring those therapeutic aspects into my yoga classes. I teach about 17 classes a week, like group classes. And then also with private clients, it's been really nice to be able to, with a studio, in that way, be able to give people little pieces of wisdom and little pieces of help. And it's been really lovely because my niche has mostly become the functional anatomy base, which is really all accredited to Maria. Like the program and the module that she put together for the first one in level one and then the advanced training, it really blew me away. I use her techniques and her verbiage to this day, every time I teach, every time I work with someone. And so all of these little kind of different approaches set me up for success to be able to handle and to help lots of different clients. And something I've also learned is that yoga therapy is not for everyone. And that's something that I've had to learn as, yoga therapist in training and then, doing this work with people, is to accept that not everyone is ready for it or wants to do it, and that's okay. And we give them grace and space and create a safe container, which was one of the first things you said in our kind of intro call, was the goal here is to create a safe container. And that's kind of what we do. So that's been really helpful, kind of just creating a safe container for everyone. And lastly, the most impactful thing has been these yoga therapy techniques. Kind of how Whitney said, they've helped me regulate me and meet me where I'm at. Because when you're really doing anything in life, you need to take care of yourself. And when yoga becomes your life, as it has for me, and as well as all the people here and so many other people, you need your own tools to support yourself. And so I've kind of become my own yoga therapist along the way. And that's been really valuable. And also, it's allowed me to meet and help so many different types of people with so many different concerns. I work with people with cancer, I work with people with MS, knee and hip replacements, people with who just experience anxiety or depression, people with grief. And I feel like I have a really good handle on how to do that because of the comprehensive nature of the training.
Thank you so much, Jordan. And I remember the days when I taught 17 classes a week. And for those of you who are here, Jordan is a lot younger than me, and I'm excited that you're able to do it. And you also have the opportunity to work privately with clients too, if the call comes to slow down on the group classes. But I can tell that you're probably quite inspired by it too, and I understand how that goes. So everything you shared was really beautiful, Jordan. Thank you. I'm curious if anybody has any questions for Jordan before we move on. So we're going to go to Lisa here next. Hi, Lisa. And my questions for you tonight, Lisa, as I mentioned, for those who were here right from the start, Lisa is a yoga therapist and a mental health professional. Which you don't have to be, right? In order to be a yoga therapist, you don't have to be a mental health professional. But a lot of folks are interested these days. Folks who work as mental health professionals are interested in incorporating body-based or yoga-based tools into their practice. But Lisa does both. And I'd love for her to share with us about just a little bit about what her work looks like and how she does integrate yoga therapy with mental health.
I'd love to talk about that. Thank you so much, Michelle. I'll just provide a little backstory. I was trained as a psychotherapist and started working in that field in the year 2000, and got interested in yoga myself as a form of practice and for my body when my children were very young, and quickly fell in love. And a few years after that, decided to take a 200-hour teacher training. And it was in that process, especially when we were studying the philosophy, that I realized how powerful the practice and teachings of yoga are for mental health and emotional stability and regulation. And so after that, I graduated with the 200-hour in 2011. And in 2013, I studied with Amy Weintraub and did the Life Force Yoga level 1. And from there, my whole purpose and intention was to, with every client who would allow me, and in ways that I didn't say overtly that this is yoga, just work in the practices and principles and philosophy in every possible way that I could. So breathing practices, mindfulness practices, some very light somatic work where everyone was sitting on my therapy couch, and I would just invite them, hey, would you like to try something out? And the Life Force level 1 was fantastic and so powerful and helpful in so many ways, but I wanted more. And very carefully chose the program because I discovered how important that was to really very carefully review the programs, and saw that Amy was one of the trainers. And so that gave me some immediate reassurance. And being a yoga therapist in training, my cohort started in 2019. So I've had 5 years of trying things out and exploring and shifting to online practices, lots of unique and challenging experiences. I'm so excited to be in a space where people in person will get on a mat with me. I'm so honored and grateful to be able to receive them into the holistic perspective, because I'd spent years very frustrated that people only wanted to talk and only wanted to think and only wanted to talk, just sensing and intuiting and then knowing very clearly that that is so limited. It's important, but as we know from the kosha model, that's only one aspect of our being. So I'm so grateful to be able to do that now. In spring of 2020, I founded and opened an integrated health and wellness center that was, I'll just call it what I believe it to be, a deeply spiritual challenge. Deeply, deeply spiritual challenge. And learned so much from that experience. So now we have 5 providers. We have a variety of integrated therapeutic approaches. We have expressive arts therapy. I'm a yoga therapist there, massage therapy, and kind of a solid clinician who works with trauma protocol. And it's a slow growth because of COVID, but the entity is becoming more established and well known in the community. And I have other clinicians in the community sending their clients to me for what they call somatic work, which is fine. And when they arrive, we start with the body and gradually invite them to explore all the dimensions of the self. And I just do a lot of inviting, lots of inviting to all my clients. Hey, there's this thing that we could try. Would you be open to that? What if we did a little taste right now just to see what you think? And nobody's ever told me that they hated it. This is something that I think the program has been really helpful in so many ways, but in particular, the business piece from Laura Kupperman around get your elevator pitch ready, really know how to talk about your profession, your skill set, why it's helpful, why people will benefit from it. Because I'm in central Illinois, surrounded by soybean and cornfields. And this is not the place where you would think integrated health or wellness center. It's just not. So to be able to articulate what yoga therapy is and what it offers is really, really important. And I work on it all the time. I'm just always working on the pitch.
That's so great, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's been amazing to see this growth in the work that you do. And now Lisa gets to contribute in our program as well as a lead mentor for the mental health practicum that we have. So it's been wonderful for me to kind of see Lisa in that light too. And she's just been really tremendous in what she's been able to share with our students too. So any questions for Lisa or Jordan or Whitney? I'm seeing Laura's mic unmute. Would you like to ask a question, Laura?
Yes, I would. So first of all, thank you everyone for sharing. It's so inspiring and in terms of like feeling inspired to keep moving towards the goal. But Lisa, I was wondering, because you said it was a spiritual challenge, your business. And so I'm assuming there's got to be at least one thing that if you could know now before you had started, just something that you could share in terms of like a roadblock that you maybe could have avoided had you had more awareness.
I think there are always personal aspects, and I'm going to ask my brain to identify a couple of those while I share a more contextual challenge that nobody had control over. So we were set, the building was renovated, and we were ready to open on March 16th of 2020. And that is the day that our governor called the quarantine for COVID. So all of my hopes and dreams felt immediately dashed. And it was just such a deeply confusing time to like, why would we do all this? And then to have it, I'm speaking just very transparently here, why would it be all crushed? And that's a personal thing, but it was in the context of something beyond anyone's control. So the spiritual piece was, I just think immediately of the kleshas. I was so attached to this thing happening, and it wasn't going to, and it didn't. So just right there in a large, impactful way, having to wrestle with that particular source of suffering as an example. And there were other things with personnel and people and the building owner, and just mostly it's just been an ongoing practice of surrender and accepting that I'm a part of this process, but I'm not in charge. And I'm just going to contribute my very, very best and let go of whatever's going to happen. And once I came to that very clear recognition, I won't say that it's been sunshine and rainbows, but so much easier.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Any other questions for any of our panelists or for me tonight? Happy to entertain questions too. Well, great. I so appreciate the three panelists being here tonight. For those listening in, thank you for taking the time to do that. And if you have questions about inner peace yoga therapy, you can certainly reach out through our website, and happy to talk more about it with anyone who has an interest. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you
Thank
have a
you.
question, Shannon?
Yeah, actually,
Oh,
I
good.
did.
Great.
It took me a little bit to
No worries. We're still
formulate
here.
it.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. It was great to learn about your experiences. And I've been away from yoga therapy for a little bit, but getting back involved with the field. And I've learned recently about some different client payment plans, which really opens up a lot more possibilities and accessibility. So I understand that some clients can use their HSAs or FSAs to pay for yoga therapy, which I think is a tremendous development. And I'm wondering if anyone else can speak about their experience with either insurance plans or Medicare plans for yoga therapy or other options to increase accessibility, because I think it is important on both sides of the equation, so to speak, for clients, but also to be valued as a yoga therapist as well.
Great question. And it comes up a lot. Thanks, Shannon. And it's good to see you. Lisa, do you want to speak to insurance or HSA, FSA a bit? Maybe Whitney, and feel free to chime in too, Jordan, if that feels relevant. And then I'd love to speak about this bucket that I'm going to call other, because I've been definitely immersed in that world, at least over the last couple of years. How does that sound? Yeah. You want to start, Lisa?
Sure. I want to acknowledge that because I'm licensed as a psychotherapist, I have the freedom and ability to file claims under codes that cover a lot of types of intervention. And if I wasn't, I think I'd really be struggling with how do I, like your term of how do I make it accessible, but also how do I value the work? Because both are really important. So some clients, I do file insurance claims as the psychotherapist, and other clients who either don't want to use their insurance or they have a ridiculous deductible, like $8,000 deductible or something crazy like that. I created a sliding scale, and I have about a third of all of my clients utilize the sliding scale, and it really varies. I made it a pretty wide ranging because part of the center's mission is to make our services accessible, and even $20 or $25 might be a little pinch for some clients. So the bottom of the scale is 20 and the top of the scale is 150, which is kind of a reasonable range in our market. I got to always look at what will the market for your community bear. So I do a little bit of a combo, and I hope I'm not stealing from your other category, Michelle. But that's kind of how I navigate that. No one has asked me to use their HSA or FSA accounts. And I, for a variety of reasons, have chosen not to get on a Medicare or Medicaid panel, just for a variety of reasons. But I work with a lot of older folks, lots and lots of older folks. They often I don't want to bother with any of that.
That's helpful. Thanks, Lisa. Whitney or Jordan? Whitney, you want to chime in with anything additional?
Yeah, I don't have much to say on this because I don't work with insurance or HSA, FSA. I have had inquiries about it from patients that are discharged from the rehab and that want to continue to practice me or that want to do individual sessions. And they have been receiving treatment with their insurance. And so it's a barrier. And it's something that I'm currently working on navigating because, one, for my professional benefit, I would like to work with these people. And then for their benefit, they deserve treatment. They deserve ongoing treatment. And, once a patient is discharged from a recovery center, the treatment needs to continue and they could be also like financially pulled in a lot of different directions. So a lot of those folks are struggling financially. So what I am slowly navigating is to work with this company so that somehow one-on-one yoga therapy sessions can be something that I offer under the umbrella of the corporation of SunCloud so that they could bill insurance because I am not able to. So it's a project. Talk to me in a year and I'll let you know how it's going and if it's budged at all. But that's all I can really say about the insurance side of things. And then for private clients, through my own business, I do offer sliding scale as well. And that's something that I've done from the beginning and it feels right to me and it opens the door for more people to have yoga therapy.
That's great. Thank you, Whitney. Jordan, anything you want to add? I know you're in Canada, but I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a way you want to contribute to this part of the conversation.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm in Canada. I mean, I was born in the States, so I kind of know the system, but in Canada, healthcare is similar but different. And so I have had people, for any Canadians who are here, I have had people who build their insurance and a lot of the private insurance. You get public insurance, from the government, and then you can get private insurance as well. A lot of those companies do cover things like this, which is incredible. So a lot of the companies in Canada are quite progressive in that way. I can't speak to all of them, but I have provided everybody pretty much, they bill directly, they submit it to their insurance here, the people who I've worked with. But outside of insurance, just like Lisa and Whitney, I do a sliding scale, and it is really helpful because I really feel that there should be very little barrier to entry, that if people want to do this, they can do it. And it's Seva, like in some way of just, sometimes people can't pay it all, and I give them as much as I can give them because I think everybody deserves to have access to this work if they need it. So yeah, that's for the Canadians.
Thanks, Jordan. And then I guess the pieces that I will add here, as a yoga therapist myself and a yoga teacher, I've had students and clients pay with their HSA through the years. I think it kind of depends upon what your HSA will cover. But basically, I mean, it worked like a credit card. So if you could invoice them or take a credit card, they could pay with their HSA. That's how simple that was. And again, I think it depends upon what your HSA covers. And then this other piece that I'll throw in there is primarily how I'm offering yoga therapy in my community in Colorado today. And that is through community grants. So I have been the recipient of several different grants or grant-based programs so that certain populations, whether it's folks going through cancer or people in recovery now, I just received a grant last week for that, as well as young teenagers with mental health needs can get to come to the yoga therapy. And these are for group classes. But I've got 5 group classes a week for these different populations. Group classes, they get to come for free. I get paid, and the grant pays me. So it's either a grant that I've received directly through Inner Peace Yoga Therapy to do this work, or that another nonprofit has received and they want to allocate some of their grant programming toward yoga. And that's the case with the cancer groups that I've worked with and have now for quite a few years. And I think that is underutilized. So that's why people may be hearing me talk about that a bit, because I don't think enough yoga therapists are doing that. And the important thing is to think about populations of people that you want to work with and who in your community is already serving them. Because you're not necessarily looking for yoga grants, you're looking for grants for people in recovery, or who wants to support individuals with cancer, or who's interested in the well-being of youth in your community with mental health needs. Those are the grants that you go after. And then you let them know that yoga and yoga therapy is a really important aspect of the health and well-being of these populations. And now there is research and awareness around that. that grants can be better won at this point. So I think that's how we can be creative too. And whether it's a grant or like a micro sponsorship, a sponsorship from a corporation, even that wants to contribute back to the community. I think when you work at the local level instead of seeking nationwide grants, you'll have better luck, if you will. At least that's been my experience. So that's my encouragement too, in terms of increasing accessibility by lowering really any cost to the individual and ensuring that yoga therapy gets out there and that the yoga therapists get paid. And now I'm at the point where there are other yoga therapists in the community where I live who have been trained through Inner Peace. And so therefore I don't have to teach all the classes myself, right? They're funded and I have the support in the little studio that I have there to rely on other yoga therapists to kind of help teach the classes. That's what I'll add to that picture, Shannon.
Thank you all so much. It's really helpful, and it inspires me of where I can go and options that I can pursue. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks again to our panelists, and have a great night, everybody. Take care.
Thanks. Night.
Good night, everyone.
If you'd like to learn more about who we are and what we do, visit us at innerpeaceyogatherapy.com.